Please comment where you are watching in the world. I wasn't exactly looking for love. It was the middle of the global lockdown, and I was mostly bored, swiping through profiles for hours on Tinder. That's where I met him, Ahan. He had a warm smile, a scruffy beard, and a kind of rugged, artsy look that felt safe yet interesting. We chatted for a few weeks. He was funny, a little weird, but in a way that made me think he might just be quirky. Given how new the virus was at the time, I was extremely cautious. I asked him if he'd been tested recently. He said he had, negative, and had also isolated for 2 weeks. I double-checked his social media. Everything added up. I figured, why not? Nothing was open anyway. Everything was shut down, even the parks. So I invited him over to my apartment in Marburg for a drink and to just talk. It was daylight, I had friends on speed dial, and I wasn't planning on anything beyond a conversation on my balcony. I wore jeans and a hoodie, just in case I needed to make it clear this wasn't a hookup. He arrived at 4:15 p.m. sharp. I remember because I was still drying a glass when the buzzer rang. He came up, and the first thing I noticed was the way he looked around my place, not admiring it but scanning. His eyes lingered on corners, on the hallway, on the door frames. It gave me a strange feeling, like maybe I should have met him in a public space after all. Still, I offered him a drink, just a beer, and we sat out on the balcony. The conversation started light, but quickly veered into dark territory. He began talking about his ex-girlfriend, and not in a we didn't work out kind of way. He was trashing her, calling her names, saying she was manipulative, emotionally unstable, a freeloader. I tried to change the subject, but he doubled down. Then he said it. I got arrested because of her. Twice. For domestic incidents, he said, laughing like it was a fun fact. I blinked. Domestic? Like as in domestic violence? He nodded. Yeah, but it was all BS. She baited me. Like once, she threw a mug at my head and I grabbed her wrist to stop her, and suddenly I'm the abuser. I didn't know what to say. I knew I wasn't comfortable anymore. I started planning how to end the evening politely. Then, as I was trying to wrap up the conversation, he looked down at my cat, Kismet, who had jumped into his lap. You know, if you really want to be with someone like me, he said, stroking Kismet's head in a way that made her tail twitch, you'll have to get rid of the cats. I tilted my head. What? I'm allergic. And I don't do pets. They're distractions. Too needy. You'll have to choose. I laughed. I thought he was joking, but his face was dead serious. Wait, you're not serious, are you? I asked. Dead serious. I don't live with rodents. If I'm staying over, they can't be around. I stood up. Okay. Well, it's getting late. I have an early morning. He didn't move. You're tired already? We've only been talking for like 20 minutes. I didn't sleep great last night. I just need to wind down. So bed then, he smirked. No, I said flatly. I mean, you should go. I'm calling it a night. He leaned back in the chair, arms crossed. I'm not feeling buzzed yet. Maybe I'll hang out a bit more. I walked to the door. Ahan, I'm serious. Time to go. He finally stood up, but not without muttering something in what I think was Hindi, something bitter and sharp. I didn't ask what it meant. He left. The door clicked shut. I stood there for a moment, trying to shake the weird energy off. I locked the door, double-checked the windows, and poured the rest of his beer down the sink. The whole interaction had lasted maybe 30 minutes. He still texts me to this day. It's been over a year. I've never responded. He writes things like, I miss your laugh, and why won't you talk to me? I'm better now. I never gave him my Instagram or Snapchat, but somehow he keeps trying to add me. It gets worse. A few months after that bizarre date, I came home from grocery shopping to find my front door slightly ajar. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was even moved. But I knew I had locked it. I always double lock. I work from home, and I live alone. The thought that someone had been there while I was gone made my skin crawl. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing soft sounds from the kitchen, though I told myself it was the wind, or maybe the fridge. But the next morning, I found my cat's food container open. I closed it every night. I was sure of it. I replaced the locks. I told the building manager. He brushed it off. Weeks later, I opened my mailbox and found a handful of slimy, writhing maggots. Just maggots. No note. Nothing else. I broke down. My stomach dropped. I couldn't even scream. I just stood there numb, bile rising in my throat. I moved out of that apartment 3 weeks later. Packed everything and left Marburg for good. I moved to another state, over 500 kilometers away. New city, new job, new SIM card. I even changed my name on social media. I still wake up some nights thinking I hear footsteps in the hallway. I'll never know for sure if Ahan was behind the break-in or the maggots. But I have my suspicions. He was the only person I had a bad enough vibe from. The only one who left me with that feeling, that hollow, cold core in my chest. There's a version of this story where I stayed longer in that apartment, where I didn't listen to my instincts, where I answered one of his messages and told myself he deserved a second chance. There's a version of this story where I didn't make it out. I've listened to enough true crime podcasts to know how these kinds of stories can end. And for whatever reason, caution luck cats, I'm still here to tell mine. I wish I could say this was just another bad date story, but it wasn't a single date. It was a drawn-out, emotionally draining stretch of time that had me questioning my own sanity and sleep schedule. It wasn't violent or some stalker horror tale, either, not exactly. But it was exhausting in a way I didn't expect. It started off so harmless. Her name was Lala. We met at a mutual friend's game night. She had this bright energy, kind of magnetic. She laughed a lot, had this slightly raspy voice that made her sound like she'd been through some stuff but was still upbeat. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, but she had this charisma that just made everyone lean in when she talked. She beat everyone at codenames. I remember thinking, okay, she's actually kind of cool. We exchanged numbers, texted for a few days, and then went out for coffee. That turned into dinner. Then we made it official a few weeks later. I was working full-time at a medical equipment company, long days, sometimes early mornings. She didn't have a job at the time, said she was between things, which I didn't mind at first. I figured we were all still sorting things out post-lockdown. I didn't ask too many questions. That was probably my first mistake. The first month or so was great. She was sweet, fun, super affectionate. Always wanted to be around. At first, I liked that. I was used to dating people who were a little distant or flaky. Lala was the opposite. She was all in. At the time, it felt refreshing. But after about 6 weeks, the cracks started to show. It started with a movie date. I suggested we go see The Gravity House, some indie sci-fi flick that had good reviews. She agreed, but then immediately followed it up with, "Let's do another one tomorrow. I want to see the Moth Parade too." I laughed. 2 nights in a row. You sure? She smiled. Why not? My dad used to take me to the movies almost every night. It's kind of my thing. I miss it. It sounded sweet, almost nostalgic, so I said sure. Then came night 3, then 4, then 5. By night 6, I was barely holding it together. I was surviving on caffeine and muscle memory. I had to be up for work at 6:30 every morning, and most of these movies didn't end until midnight. And it wasn't like we were watching them at home. No, we had to go to the theater. She insisted on the experience. I tried to explain that I couldn't keep doing late nights like that. I told her I needed rest. "You don't like movies?" she asked, arms crossed. "I love movies, but I also love sleeping, and not looking like a zombie at work." She didn't laugh. That night, I told her I needed a break. Just one night to catch up on sleep. I had a headache, I was tired, and my body was screaming at me. She said okay, kissed me goodnight over the phone. Then my landline started ringing at 1:17 a.m. Yes, I still had a landline, don't ask. I ignored it. Then it rang again at 1:21. Then again at 1:27. The 4th time, I yanked the cord out of the wall. I woke up groggy the next morning and saw 11 missed calls on my cell as well. 7 of them from Lala, from an unknown number. I texted her asking if everything was okay. She texted back, "I couldn't sleep. I thought we could talk." At 1:30 in the morning, she called me again that evening and told me she was breaking up with me. "You clearly don't have the energy to make this work," she said, her voice tight and controlled. I didn't argue. I just said, okay. And you know what? I felt relief. Like, immediate, full-body relief. I slept for 10 hours straight that night. I turned off my phone, made pancakes at 10 a.m., and watched cartoons like a kid on a Saturday. It felt like I got my life back. But the story doesn't end there. About 3 weeks later, I got a text from her. It was just a photo of the movie marquee at our local theater. The Moth Parade was showing again. She wrote, "One more night?" I didn't respond. Then the next day, she showed up at my apartment. No warning. Just rang the buzzer and said, I was in the neighborhood. I didn't let her up. She did it again the next day. And the next. Sometimes she'd bring snacks. Once she brought a copy of The Gravity House on Blu-ray and left it wedged between my front door and the frame. Another time, she slid a handwritten letter under the door. It was 3 pages long. She wrote about how movies were the only time her family got along. How her dad wasn't around anymore. How she thought I was different. Special. That we had cinematic potential. I wanted to feel something. Guilt maybe. But mostly I felt tired. A week after that, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. It was her. She didn't bother pretending it was someone else. I just want to talk, she said. Why are you being so cold? I'm not trying to be cold. I just think we want different things. So you're just done. Just like that. I didn't say that. I think we tried. It didn't work. She was quiet for a moment, then said, You should come outside. I froze. What? I'm parked outside your building. I brought your favorite popcorn. I looked out the window. Sure enough, there was her little blue hatchback, idling across the street. I didn't go down. Eventually, she drove off. From there, things got quieter. I thought maybe she'd finally accepted it. But then I started seeing her at places I frequented. My usual grocery store. The coffee shop next to my office. Once, she was at the gas station across from the gym I go to after work. We didn't talk, but she made sure I saw her. One day, I came home and found a bag hanging on my doorknob. Inside, a movie ticket stub, a small plush fox. We once saw a film where the protagonist had a fox companion, and a note that said, Let's rewind. No name. No number. Just that. I moved apartments 2 months later. New place, different neighborhood, unlisted address. I changed my phone number and updated my contact info with only a few close friends and family. Not all bad relationships start with shouting. Some start with quiet inconveniences. Little things. Things that you tell yourself aren't a big deal. Things like someone showing up without calling, or calling and not speaking, or listening when you don't know they're listening. That's how it was with Lyra. We met through a mutual friend at a birthday barbecue. She had a soft face, like someone who'd never been angry a day in her life. She wore oversized glasses, was obsessed with matcha, and made a lot of eye contact. I liked that. Our first few dates were clumsy but sweet. She'd show up with random things, lychee juice, a book about dream interpretation, once even a bag of frozen samosas. She made me laugh. I liked her unpredictability. But then the unpredictability stopped being cute. It started with the drop-ins. I'd be sitting at home reading or just getting ready to go out with friends, and my doorbell would ring. No text. No warning. I'd peek through the peephole, and there she was, Lyra, holding a tote bag and smiling like we had plans. Oh, you're busy? She'd say, like the idea was absurd. I just thought we could hang out. I was bored. I tried to hint that I didn't like that. I even said once, Hey, I'm kind of a planner. I like a heads up. She smiled and said, That's cute, like I was being silly. One Saturday, I was on my way out to meet a friend for lunch. I opened the door, and there she was on the doorstep, holding a Tupperware of stir-fried noodles. I made too much, she said. Let's eat. I can't, I said. I'm headed out. She blinked. Oh, with who? Just a friend. We're trying a new tapas place. She paused. Can I come? It was like a punch to the gut. Not because I didn't want her there, but because I knew she didn't understand the boundaries she was crossing. Not today, I said. We made these plans a while ago. She didn't move. Just stood there, holding the container. After a long pause, she handed it to me and said, Fine. Take it, but don't microwave it too long or the bok choy gets rubbery. Then she walked away without another word. That night, she dialed me. I didn't answer, but the call kept going. I figured she'd realize and hang up, but she didn't. So I put the phone on speaker and set it on the table while I cleaned up. I wasn't eavesdropping, at least not at first. I thought maybe she'd notice soon. But 40 minutes passed. 40. No talking. Just background noise. The occasional clink of a glass, a soft murmur here and there. Then at minute 43 she noticed. The call ended. I didn't think much of it. Just a pocket call. It happens. Then she called me back. You were listening? She asked, furious. You called me. And you didn't hang up. I figured you'd notice. You left the line open for almost an hour. She was breathing heavily. That's such a violation. You invaded my privacy. I blinked. You literally show up at my place whenever you feel like it. How is that different? She didn't answer. We didn't talk for a few days after that. I thought maybe she was letting it go. But then she showed up again. No knock. Just a text from the elevator. Buzz me in. I didn't respond. She buzzed again. Then again. Then she called. I answered. I told you I don't like surprise visits, I said. You said you didn't like unannounced visits, she corrected. I announced myself. Just now. That was her logic. So the next time she butt-dialed me, I listened. Not because I was curious, but because I was tired. Tired of being the one who always took the high road. Tired of being the one who bent. This time I heard her talking to someone. Her sister, maybe? She was venting about me. Saying I was distant, hard to read, too controlled. That I made her feel like she was always walking into a cold room. I didn't feel angry. I felt numb. We broke up soon after that. No big blow-up. No screaming. Just a quiet unraveling. She deleted my number. Unfollowed me on everything. I think she blocked me too, but honestly I never bothered to check. I didn't want closure. I just wanted stillness. Some peace. A week without sudden texts or surprise noodles or 45-minute silent calls. There's one part one left out though. A week after we broke up, I found something in my closet. Tucked under a stack of old t-shirts was a small scarf, Lyra's. I don't remember her ever wearing it around me. It smelled faintly of lavender. Under my bathroom sink, I found a nearly empty bottle of face serum. Not mine. In my sock drawer, a pair of earrings. Tiny gold ones. I had no idea how long they'd been there. It was like she'd been nesting, planting pieces of herself in my space. Quietly, slowly, like she was preparing to stay forever. I boxed everything up and left it with the doorman. I didn't tell her. I didn't need to. She never asked about it. You can tell a lot about a person from the way they handle silence. Some people fill it with nervous laughter. Others try to break it with meaningless chatter. Then there are people like her, who sit in it like they own it. Her name was Yenmei. We matched on a dating app I'd only downloaded out of boredom during a long work trip. Her profile was sparse. A single photo in black and white, no filters, no bio. Just one sentence in Mandarin that translated to something like, "If you don't ask, you'll never know." I asked. Our conversations were strange. Delayed. Her English was limited, so we mostly relied on translation apps. Still, there was something magnetic about her. Her directness, her confidence, the way she stared into the camera like she was daring me to flinch. She said she was new to my city, spoke Mandarin and a little French, and wanted to meet someone serious. I figured the language barrier would be a challenge, but not insurmountable. I should have stopped when she asked if she could bring a translator. I thought she meant an app. We agreed to meet for lunch at a small Vietnamese restaurant near downtown. It was a quiet spot, mostly booths and low lighting, with soft instrumental music playing overhead. I arrived early, dressed nice but not too nice, collared shirt, dark jeans, decent shoes. I sat at a corner table and waited. Then I saw her walk in. She was beautiful, graceful. Her movements were precise, almost rehearsed. She wore a pale blue dress that looked like it had never been wrinkled in its life. Her hair was in a tight braid, and her eyes scanned the room like she'd memorized a blueprint of it. Behind her was a man. Tall. Early 40s maybe. Western. Wearing a beige suit that looked like it belonged to someone else entirely. He had a thick neck, a receding hairline, and a mouth that seemed permanently stuck in a half-smirk. He walked in like he wasn't following her, but leading. They sat down across from me. Yenmei smiled and nodded. The man extended a hand. "I'm Peter," he said. "I'll be translating for her." I shook his hand, stunned. "Oh, okay." He opened a small leather folio, pulled out a pen, and placed a slim digital recorder on the table with a casual click. "For clarity," he said. I looked at Yenmei. She smiled again but didn't speak. Peter leaned forward. "So, let's begin." It didn't feel like a date. It felt like an interview. Or worse, an interrogation. I tried to start small. Where was she from exactly? What brought her here? What did she do for work? Peter translated my questions, but instead of waiting for her answers, he often nodded like he already knew what she'd say. Sometimes he would answer before she even opened her mouth. "She's from Chengdu. Her father is in real estate. She's studying language and culture here, but mostly she wanted to get away from the pressure. You understand?" I nodded, though I didn't. I noticed Yenmei never touched the menu. She didn't look at it, didn't seem to care what was being served. Peter ordered for her, then turned to me and said, "You're covering the bill, I assume?" I blinked. Yeah." He smiled again, thin and sharp. "Good. She appreciates tradition." The server brought out drinks. I had water. Peter had a Coke. Yenmei had tea. She sipped it delicately, eyes never leaving mine. Then things got weirder. Peter reached across the table and speared a piece of spring roll off my plate with his chopsticks. "Hope you don't mind," he said, chewing. I was too stunned to say anything. Yenmei watched him with no reaction. Then she leaned in and said something in rapid Mandarin. Peter nodded. "She wants to know if you're ready for marriage." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. He didn't laugh. "She's serious." I looked at her. Her expression hadn't changed. We just met," I said. "This is our first date." Peter nodded. "Yes. But she's not interested in wasting time. She's looking for someone who is ready for a partnership. Someone who understands duty. Commitment." I placed my fork down. "Duty?" He nodded. "She reviews all her dates with her family afterward. They weigh in. Think of it like a collective choice." I looked at Yenmei. "Do you agree with that?" She tilted her head, then smiled. Peter said, "She says, when you're weak alone, you must be strong together." I stood up. "I don't think this is going to work." Peter looked unbothered. "She thought you might say that." Yenmei said something else. Long measured. Her voice was soft but deliberate. Peter translated. "She says disappointment is part of the process. She'll note it down." I turned to leave. As I walked away, Peter called out, "She still thinks you have potential." I didn't respond. I thought that was the end. That night, I got a message. No text. Just a photo. It was me, sitting in the restaurant, taken from a low angle, likely from Peter's seat. The next day, another photo. Me, entering my apartment building. Then, one of me inside my car. I went to the police. They said I needed more evidence. That the photos by themselves weren't illegal. Days passed. Then a week. I changed my number. Deleted the app. But the photos kept coming, now via email. Always from different accounts. Always with the same subject line, potential. I moved. Changed jobs. Went off social for a while. But I still wonder, was Peter really just a translator? Or was he something else? And was Yenmei ever really speaking at all? I met her on a Wednesday. It was already dark out by the time we sat down at that little tea shop on the edge of the square. I remember everything about her. Her name was Lilica. Unusual name. I asked her if it meant anything, and she said it was Slavic. My mother pulled it from a poem she read when she was a child, about a girl who drowned. She said this smiling, like she was telling me about her favorite soup. She was beautiful, but not in a way that made you immediately nervous. Her beauty was strange, offbeat. Pale skin that looked almost translucent under the yellow lights. Her eyes were a soft grayish green, the color of moss after rain. She wore a turtleneck and a long brown coat that smelled faintly of clove cigarettes and lavender oil. We'd matched on an app called Lantern, the kind that leaned into intellectual connections. You couldn't see full photos at first. Just prompts. Hers said, "Looking for someone who listens, who doesn't flinch when the room gets quiet." I liked that. And for the first half of our date, it really did feel like something. We talked about books, films. She told me she had a thing for black and white horror movies, the kind where the monster is mostly off-screen. The scariest things, she said, are the ones you never fully see. She sipped her tea and watched me over the rim of her cup. I couldn't tell if she was testing me or just naturally intense. Then she said it, out of nowhere. "You're number 79. I blinked. "Come again." She set her cup down gently, as if afraid it might break. "You're the 79th person I've dated." I laughed, thinking she was teasing me. But her expression didn't change. "You're serious?" She nodded. "Completely. I keep track." "That's a lot of people." Lilica smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. "People say that, but I think it's smart. You don't know what you want unless you try things. Try people." I didn't know how to respond to that. I've dated maybe 6 people seriously in my life. A few flings, sure. But 79? That wasn't just dating. That was cataloging. She leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "I have a system. I keep a journal. Every date, I write down what worked, what didn't, what they said, what they wore. Things like that." I managed a smile. "So what's the verdict on me so far?" She didn't answer immediately. Then she said, "I don't know yet." That's the point of the second date. It wasn't a question. I walked her to her car. A small, slate-gray hatchback that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. She opened the door, then turned to me. "I should tell you something. I always go over my dates with my brother." I stopped mid-step. "Your brother?" She nodded. "It's kind of our thing. He's very protective. I call him after every date. Like, for safety? She tilted her head. No, for analysis. She got in and drove off without another word. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of anything specific, just a general unease. I kept replaying the way she'd said 79, like it was some sacred number. Like I was a chapter in a book she was writing. I told myself I was overreacting, that I'd had too much caffeine, that it was just a quirky date with someone eccentric. But then she sent me a message. It was a photo of me, sitting at the tea shop, looking down at my cup, clearly taken from across the room. No caption. I stared at it for a long time. My stomach twisted. I hadn't seen her take it, hadn't even noticed her phone out. Had she taken it before I arrived? Had she been watching me from a different table? I didn't reply. The next day, I got another message. This one was a list. Things I liked about you. You listen more than you talk. You let me finish my thoughts. You didn't judge the number. You didn't flinch when I said my brother helps. Then, that puts you in the top 10. I should have blocked her then. I didn't. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I wanted to know what her deal was. Why she kept such detailed records. Why her brother was involved. Why she watched people like she was building a case file. So I agreed to a second date. We met at a botanical conservatory. She said she liked places that smelled alive. She wore a long black skirt and a white blouse with tiny pearl buttons. Her hair was braided down her back in a way that reminded me of old paintings. She didn't smile when she saw me, just looked me up and down and said, "You wore the same shoes." I looked down at my boots. "Yeah, comfortable." She nodded. Consistency is good. Most people don't realize how telling their footwear is. We walked through the conservatory paths in silence for a while. Then she said, "Do you want to know how most of the others failed?" I didn't answer, but she continued anyway. Most people don't listen. They think they do, but they're just waiting for their turn to talk. Or they pretend to be interested, but their eyes wander. Their posture shifts. They give themselves away. She turned to face me. "You didn't do that." I swallowed. "Thanks." She smiled. "You're still doing it. Holding space. That's rare." We sat on a bench near a koi pond. She reached into her bag and handed me something. It was a notebook. Hardcover. Black. No title. I opened it. Page after page of handwritten notes. Names. Dates. Locations. Observations. Each entry was numbered. Each one had a rating. I flipped to the most recent one. #78, Milo. Met at art exhibit. Talks too much. Wore cologne that gave me a headache. Asked about my brother too soon. Kept touching my arm. 5 out of 10. Disqualified. I looked up at her. "You just give this to people. Only if I trust them." I stared at the book. The pages were pristine. No creases. No smudges. Clean like a ledger. Then she said, "I think you might be the one." I laughed a little too loud. "Sorry. That sounded serious." She didn't blink. "I've been looking for someone who sees me. Not in the way men usually mean. I mean sees. The shape of me. The rhythm. The quiet." My skin prickled. The room felt colder, though I knew it was warm. I handed the notebook back. She didn't take it. "It's yours now. Read it. Understand me. Then decide." That night, I read the whole thing. It wasn't just notes. It was confessions. Obsessions. She wrote about watching men sleep. About memorizing their routines. About calling their mothers pretending to be someone from the office. About breaking into one guy's apartment after he ghosted her, just to see how he lived without me. I barely slept. The next morning, I found an envelope under my door. Inside, a Polaroid of me sleeping. On the back, it said, "You snore softly, like a memory trying not to wake up." I packed a bag and left town for the weekend. Turned my phone off. Stayed with an old friend who didn't ask questions. When I got back, I found another note taped to my door. "Leaving doesn't remove your number. You are, and always will be, 79. I moved 2 weeks later. She never messaged again after that. I was 22, freshly single after a long-term relationship that had gone from euphoric to emotionally scorched earth in the span of 6 months. My friends told me I should take time to heal, maybe travel, maybe pick up painting again, maybe just chill. Instead, I downloaded a dating app and started swiping like my loneliness was a fire that needed to be smothered with strangers. That's how I met her. Mira. She was 31, a little older than I expected to match with, but she had this chaotic energy in her messages that pulled me in. Her profile said, "Former New Yorker." Loud laugh. No filter. Let's not be boring. She had dyed red hair, a lip ring, and posted those blurry aesthetic photos that looked like they were taken at 2 a.m. in a bar bathroom. We started chatting. Her grammar was inconsistent, to put it gently. Zero punctuation. Capitalization was a myth. But she was funny. Sharp. She had this raw, unpolished honesty that made her feel real. She messaged first. "You look like you cook." "You cook?" I replied, "I can." "You eat?" "Only if you make it. Come over." I hesitated. Meeting someone at their place on the first go isn't usually my thing. But I was younger, dumber, and more confident than I deserved to be. I practiced Muay Thai, had a good sense for sketchy situations, and figured I could handle myself. So I went. When she opened the door, the first thing I noticed was that she was significantly shorter and rounder than her photos suggested. I didn't care, but the difference was jarring. Her hair was messy, her eyeliner smudged like she'd slept in it for a week. She wore an oversized hoodie and no pants. Just socks. "Come in," she said without a smile. Shoes off. Her apartment was chaos. Piles of laundry on the floor. Dishes in the sink. A cat I hadn't been warned about darted across the hallway like it was late for a meeting. The couch had a giant brown stain on one cushion, and she gestured for me to sit on the other. She talked for over an hour. She told me about her psychic dreams, about the time she slapped her boss at a bar job in Queens, and how she once lived in a hostel in Spain for 3 months because she wanted to see how much body odor she could tolerate before snapping. Then she said, "So, what are you making me for dinner?" I blinked. "What? You said you could cook." "I'm starving. I don't cook. Not unless it's microwave popcorn or revenge." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. She led me into the kitchen. The fridge was almost empty, some eggs, half a cucumber, and what appeared to be expired kimchi. I offered to order takeout, but she insisted I make it work. I boiled the eggs, sliced up the cucumber, found some rice in the pantry, and whipped up a passable rice bowl with what little I had. She devoured it like she hadn't eaten in days. After dinner, she leaned in and kissed me. It was sudden, greedy, not romantic. Her hands were already under my shirt before I registered what was happening. "I've been on a dry spell," she whispered. "This ends it." I backed up. "Maybe we should slow down," I said. She gave me a look like I had insulted her lineage. "You're not into me?" I'm fresh out of something serious. I didn't come here expecting." She stood up, walked into the hallway, and slammed her bedroom door. I stood there in the kitchen, unsure of what to do. After a minute, she came back out, eyes red, holding a ratty blanket and a pillow. "You can sleep on the couch," she said. "Or leave. Whatever." I chose the latter. She didn't walk me out. I figured that would be the end of it. A weird blip. A story to tell my friends over drinks. But she texted the next day. "Sorry I get intense. Just really liked you. You make me feel safe." I didn't reply. She texted again the day after. "I dreamt you made me pancakes and told me you missed me." "You miss me?" And again. "Come back. I'll be chill. Promise." Eventually I responded. I told her I wasn't in the right headspace. That I needed space to figure out what I wanted. She said she understood. Then sent me 5 voice notes in a row, mostly her crying and whispering things like, "I'm not crazy, I just needed someone to see me." I blocked her. 2 days later, she created a new account and messaged me again. "You blocked me? Wow. I told you I was sensitive." I ignored it. Then she started posting things on her public Instagram. Screenshots of our messages, cropped and edited to make it look like I had promised her a relationship. She tagged me in one and wrote, "Men lie. Even the ones who cook." That one got a few likes, a few comments. I reported the post. It was taken down eventually. I thought it was over. Until one night, 2 months later, my roommate woke me up. "Hey bro, there's someone outside." I stumbled to the window. Mira, standing across the street, smoking, staring up at the building like she was waiting for a sign from God. I turned off the lights. She stayed there for at least 20 minutes. Then she got in a car and left. The next day, I found a sticky note on my car windshield. "I still think of your hands. M. I sold that car 3 weeks later. I haven't seen her since." I should have known the second I saw that van. Something about the rusted side panel and the ancient bumper sticker that read, "Wicked girls have more fun," told me I was in for a weird night. But I was already parked, sitting in my best jeans, trying to keep my nerves in check. It was our first time meeting in person, and I'd driven 2 hours to get there. Her name was Indira. We'd met online a few weeks earlier. She was 18, just out of high school, and I was 20, in my second year of university. She had this confident way of texting, like she was older than her age. She sent selfies that looked effortless, always in natural light, no filters. She told me she liked low-budget horror films and used to sneak into abandoned buildings with her friends for the vibe. I was hooked. Our chats were long. She asked thoughtful questions. She seemed genuinely curious about what made me tick. She talked about wanting to escape her small town, how she felt caged by her family, and how she was drawn to people who made life feel cinematic. I didn't know what that meant exactly, but I wanted to be that person for her. So when she suggested we meet up in person, I said yes without hesitation. We agreed to meet at a gas station just outside her town. It was halfway between her house and the comedy club where I'd bought tickets for later that night. I showed up early like an idiot, rehearsing cool things to say in my head. I texted her that I was there, silver Honda Civic, parked by the side of the lot. That's when the gold van pulled up. It was beat up. One of the side mirrors was held on with duct tape, and the sliding door had a dent that looked like someone had kicked it. I saw Indira in the passenger seat, waving. Before I could even get out of my car, the passenger side door of the van opened and a guy stepped out. He was tall and lanky, with a shaved head and wearing all black. His hoodie had some obscure metal band on it, and he had a lip ring that looked freshly pierced. He didn't say hi. He opened my door, got in the passenger seat, and shut it. I stared at him, stunned. "You're Kellen," he said. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I'm Adric. I'm Indira's boyfriend." I blinked. "Her what?" He stared straight ahead, not looking at me. "I just wanted to make sure you didn't get the wrong idea tonight. She and I just started dating, but she still wants to get to know you. Just keep your hands to yourself." He opened the door, stepped out without another word, and walked back to the van. Indira got out, smiled like nothing had happened, and slid into my passenger seat. "Sorry about that," she said, brushing her bangs out of her eyes. "He's a little intense." I was speechless. I just stared at her, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. She looked at me and tilted her head. "What? You have a boyfriend?" She sighed. "It's new. Like 3 days ago. I'm still figuring out how I feel. But you're here. With me. I still wanted to meet you. That hasn't changed." I wanted to ask more questions, but part of me just didn't want to know the answers. I'd driven 2 hours. The tickets were non-refundable. And she was still sitting in my car like it was all normal. We went to a nearby diner that she picked. She ordered a milkshake and fries. I got a turkey club I didn't really want. She talked the whole time. I barely said anything. I was trying to wrap my head around what was happening. She told me she and Adric had met at a house party and bonded over their hatred of their exes. She said they weren't sleeping together yet, but probably would soon. Then she leaned over the table and looked into my eyes. "But I still wanted to see you, because you feel different, calmer." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know who she thought I was. But I was hooked again, and I hated myself for it. The comedy show was out of the question. I wasn't about to spend another $40 on someone who had a boyfriend. So I told her I was tired and probably heading back soon. She looked disappointed. "Already?" "Yeah." She nodded and didn't argue. In the parking lot, she hugged me. It was long. Her hands gripped the back of my hoodie like she didn't want to let go. Then she kissed my cheek. The whole drive back, I was angry, at her, at myself, at the entire night. I kept reliving what Adric said. "Keep your hands to yourself." Like I was some kind of threat. Like I was intruding in something I didn't even know existed. I hit 95 miles per hour on the highway at one point. Not because I was rushing, just because I didn't care. But that wasn't the end. The next few days, she kept texting me. About nothing. Memes. Photos of her cat. A Spotify link to a playlist she'd made called For Us. I ignored a few of them, then answered one, then another. Eventually I asked, "Does Adric know you're still talking to me?" She replied, "He doesn't need to." That should have been my cue to block her. Instead, I let her keep talking. She started telling me things that made no sense. That she missed me, even though we'd only met once. That she couldn't stop thinking about my voice. That she had dreams where we were traveling together, just driving with no destination. Then she dropped a bomb. "He's not letting me see anyone. He gets jealous." I asked, "Do you want to leave him?" She didn't answer for a few minutes. Then, I don't know. He makes me feel safe. But you make me feel awake. I didn't know what to do with that. A few nights later, I got a call from her. She was crying. Said a trick had gone through her phone. That he'd seen our messages. That he'd threatened to block me from everything. I asked if she was okay. She said, "I'm scared of being alone. But I think I need to be." I offered to drive out and talk to her in person. She said no. He's watching the house. We didn't talk for 2 weeks. Then she messaged me out of the blue. I broke up with him. I didn't reply. The next night, she sent me a photo of her hand, middle finger up, a ring on it. "Freedom," the caption read. I still didn't reply. But I thought about her. A lot. I wondered if she was lying. If she'd ever really broken up with him. If Adric was still lurking nearby, checking her phone, reading every word. Then one day I saw a post online. A local news article. A man named Adric Vajan had been arrested for vandalism and trespassing. Apparently, he'd broken into a house yelling about a stolen girl. Police found a knife and a set of photos in his backpack. Photos of Indira. Photos of her with friends. Photos of her walking down the street. She had filed a restraining order. I never heard from her again after that. I don't know if she deleted her number or just finally let go. Her name was Taya. She worked in marketing and had this whole cool girl aesthetic going on. Messy bun, oversized blazer, glasses with blue light lenses, even though she didn't need a prescription. We met on a dating app, chatted for about a week, and decided to meet up for drinks one Friday after work. The day of the date, I felt awful. I'm talking sore throat, ears ringing, that kind of warm pressure behind your eyes that warns you a fever is coming. Still, I didn't want to cancel. I figured I could push through for an hour. We talked about this bar she liked, a trendy cocktail place downtown called Silver and Sage. Not really my scene, but she seemed excited about it. I texted her before I left. "Hey, just a heads up, I'm feeling a little under the weather. Not contagious or anything, just wiped out. But I still want to meet up for a quick drink if you're up for it." She responded with a thumbs up emoji and "see you there." I got to the bar a few minutes early and grabbed a booth near the back. The lighting was dim, the music was ambient, and the menu was one of those things where every drink had a name like the Saffron Whisper or Lavender Smoke. I ordered a ginger beer and waited. She arrived 10 minutes later wearing a long wool coat and lip gloss that looked like it came from a magazine ad. She greeted me with a smile and a hug that lingered a second too long. "You look better than I expected," she said. "What do you mean? You said you were sick." I thought I'd be meeting a walking corpse. I chuckled. "I'm doped up on painkillers and adrenaline. Might crash any minute." She slid into the booth across from me and ordered something with mezcal and burnt orange peel. We chatted casually for a bit. She was witty, quick on comebacks, and asked real questions, not just surface-level stuff. Then the bouncer came over. He was tall, built like a rugby player, and holding a clipboard. I assumed he was telling us we had to time out or something, but instead, he greeted Taya by name. "Hey T. Didn't know you were coming in tonight." She lit up. "Ollie." "Yeah, I just dragged this one out for a drink." "Right on," he said, raising an eyebrow at me before turning back to her. "You free later?" "Maybe. Depends how this one behaves," she said, jabbing a thumb toward me. They both laughed. I gave a polite smile, but something in my stomach tightened. He walked away, and I tried to brush it off. "Friend of yours?" I asked. "Ex-coworker. We used to bartend together here back in the day." I nodded. "Cool." About 20 minutes later, he came back, this time without the clipboard, and slid into our booth like he belonged there. "No mind if I join?" Just sat down next to her, shoulder to shoulder. "Miss this place," he said. "Kinda makes me want to get back behind the bar." "Do it," she said. "You were good at it." They started talking about old shifts, co-workers, and some wild night with a flaming cocktail gone wrong. I sipped my ginger beer, trying to stay alert, trying not to cough. Then he leaned in, dropped his voice just slightly, and said, "So, you still single?" She gave me a quick glance, barely a flick of the eyes, then said, "Sort of." "Sort of?" I didn't say anything. I didn't want to look insecure, but I could feel the heat rising in my face. I needed to use the restroom anyway, so I stood up and asked where it was. "The bouncer," Ollie said. "Oh, they're redoing the ones downstairs. You'll have to use the ones in the lounge next door. Just walk around the corner, same building." I muttered thanks and left. The lounge was farther than I thought. I walked through slushy snow and biting wind to get there. When I asked the doorman if I could use their restroom, he gave me a look like I'd just insulted his mother. These aren't public. I was told by the bar next door. They always say that. We're not affiliated. He waved me away with a smirk as the other doorman snorted. I walked back through the cold, wet from the knees down. When I re-entered Silver and Sage, my shoes made that awkward squelching noise on the polished floor. And there, in my spot, my booth was Ollie, sitting beside Taya. My coat was still on the back of the chair. My drink was untouched, and he had a fresh cocktail in his hand. They were laughing at something. I walked up, cold and irritated. "Hey," I said. "Everything all right?" Taya looked up, startled. "Oh, you're back." "Yeah, still technically on a date." Ollie smirked and stood up. "I'll leave you two to it." He walked off without another word. I sat down, peeled off my wet coat, and looked at her. "What was that?" "He's just flirty," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Don't get weird." "Weird? You're acting like I just cheated on you or something." I took a breath. "I came out tonight because I wanted to get to know you. Even though I feel like crap. Even though I probably should have stayed in bed." She tilted her head. "Then maybe you should have." I stared at her, stunned. She shrugged. "Look, if you can't handle a little fun, maybe we're not a match." I didn't respond. I just stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked out. The wind hit me like a slap. I didn't even care. I never heard from her again. No text. No follow-up. But that night did something to me. It wasn't just about the cold. Or the guy. It was the way she looked right through me, like I was a placeholder. A warm body to fill a booth. A prop in a scene where she was the star. After that, I stopped going on dates for a while. Focused on work. On sleep. On people who didn't make me feel like an afterthought. They say you never really know someone until you live with them. I'd say you never really know someone until you find their underwear stuffed between your mattress and box spring. Her name was Sanvi. We met at an open mic night at a little cafe downtown. She was on stage reading poetry, the kind that sounded like a diary entry wrapped in a breakup and dipped in red wine. I remember thinking she was intense, maybe too intense, but she also had this rawness that I hadn't seen in anyone in a long time. She wore ankle boots and a leather jacket in the middle of summer, which should have been my first clue that she wasn't like other people. Our first date turned into 2, then 4. Then we were spending nearly every night together. She'd come over with a bottle of Pinot, crawl into my lap, and read me her drafts while I played with her hair. It was easy, warm, familiar in a way that made me let my guard down. But it didn't stay easy. It started small. First, a toothbrush appeared in my bathroom, then a silk robe on the back of my bedroom door, then a half-used shampoo bottle that wasn't mine. I chalked it up to convenience. She was over a lot. It made sense. Then I found a pair of her panties in my gym bag. Not folded. Not in a separate pouch. Just casually draped on top of my clean clothes like a flag claiming new territory. Still, I didn't say anything. I figured maybe it was accidental. Maybe they got mixed in with my laundry. Maybe I was overthinking it. But then things escalated. One night, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find her in my kitchen, barefoot, wearing my t-shirt and cooking pasta. She didn't have a key. I asked her how she got in, and she smiled and waved my spare from the hook by the door. "You left this here," she said. I figured I'd surprise you. I didn't remember giving her the key. I didn't even remember her seeing where I kept it. That night, we had the nasty on the couch, slow, lingering, and a little rough. She pulled me in like she was trying to brand me with her body. Afterwards, she curled up on my chest and whispered, "I could get used to this." I should have said something then, but I didn't. I let it slide. Again. Then one Saturday, I was folding laundry and found a handful of her clothes mixed in with mine. Not the usual stuff she'd wear while staying over, but things I'd never seen before. A satin bra, a knit top, a pair of leggings that smelled like her perfume. I opened the linen closet and found more. Tucked under the towels, a pair of her ballet flats and a silk slip. Under my bathroom sink, a small makeup pouch, complete with concealer, mascara, and a tiny mirror. It was like she'd slowly been colonizing my apartment. I sat her down the next night. Tried to be gentle. "Look, I like you. A lot. But it's starting to feel like you're moving in without asking." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I keep finding your stuff everywhere. And you're here all the time." Her expression changed just slightly, like someone had flicked a switch under her skin. "I thought we were serious," she said. "You said you liked having me here." "I do. But there's a difference between staying over and moving in. She didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then she stood up, walked to her bag, and pulled out a journal. She flipped to a page and handed it to me. On it was a list titled, "Things I've Left at Jace's." There were more than 30 items. Then she handed me another list. Things I still need to bring. I stared at it numb. There was no hesitation in her handwriting. No crossed out entries. No question marks. Just a plan. Later that week, I came home from work and found her in my bed, asleep, with a lit candle burning on my nightstand. It could have burned the whole place down. I blew it out, gently woke her, and told her again that she needed to slow down. That night, we didn't have sex. She tried, but I wasn't in the mood, and I said so. She pouted, then tried again, slipped her hand under the blanket and whispered, "You know how to make me feel better." I pulled away. That was the last time I saw her. The next morning, she was gone. No note. No text. Just gone. But not really. I opened my bottom dresser drawer and found a bundle of her clothes, neatly folded and tied with a ribbon. In my fridge, her almond milk and 2 protein shakes she liked. In my coat pocket, a note that said, "You'll miss me." I packed everything up, every scarf, every bobby pin, every ridiculous essential oil bottle, and put it in a garbage bag. I left it on her front porch. She texted me that night, "Did you have to be so cruel?" I didn't respond. A week later, I saw her walking down the street with another guy. She was laughing, holding his arm the same way she used to hold mine. I wondered if she was already planting things in his apartment. I wasn't expecting to end up sobbing in the back seat of my own car, while a woman I barely knew screamed at an Uber driver and flirted with a man who may or may not have been her ex. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Her name was Leora. The name stuck out when I first saw it. Unusual, a little theatrical. Her profile said she loved karaoke, red wine, and men who can keep up. I'm not sure which one I thought I could deliver on, but after a week of flirty messages and a few late-night voice notes where she sang random lyrics into my inbox, I agreed to meet her. She picked the location, a dive bar downtown with a karaoke setup in the back and a $4 whiskey special that should probably come with a warning label. I showed up a few minutes early, wearing a clean black button-down and my best attempt at casual but not boring. Leora walked in wearing a crimson wrap dress and boots that clacked against the floor like punctuation marks. Her hair was wild and dark, eyes rimmed in eyeliner that made her look like a rock show in human form. She waved at me like we'd known each other for years. "Hey, stranger," she said, throwing her arms around me. She smelled like tequila, cigarettes, and vanilla. "You've already started drinking," I said, half laughing. She pulled back and winked. "Pre-game. I hate being sober in public." We got drinks. She ordered a double whiskey sour. I stuck with a beer and found a booth near the stage. She slid in beside me instead of across. I could already feel the heat radiating off her. She talked fast, moved fast, laughed hard. She told me she used to date a guy in a punk band and still had his leather jacket as a trophy. She said she'd been banned from 3 karaoke bars for going too hard during Janis Joplin songs. I nodded and smiled, but something in my stomach was already twisting. She got up to sing after her second drink. Criminal by Fiona Apple. She didn't just sing, she performed. Threw her head back, swayed like she was possessed, made eye contact with everyone in the room. People clapped. One guy whistled. She blew him a kiss. She came back to the table glowing. "Your turn," she said, shoving the songbook into my hands. I chose something safe, Mr. Brightside. Predictable, upbeat, no high notes. Halfway through, I saw her at the bar talking to the guy who'd whistled. She laughed at something he said and touched his arm. I finished the song to polite applause and walked back to the booth alone. She returned 10 minutes later with another drink and a new man. "Rami," she said, sliding into the seat next to him. "This is my date. This is Rami." Rami looked about 35, tall, shaved head, reeking of cologne and ego. He gave me a nod like I was the waiter. "Rami and I go way back," Leora said, leaning into him. "He's seen me at my worst." "Still am," he said under his breath. I stared at her. "What's happening right now?" She blinked. "What? You invited someone else to our date?" She laughed like it was the silliest question in the world. "He just showed up. I didn't plan it. Relax. I drove here. So, stay. Go. Do what you want." I stood up. "I think I'm good." She grabbed my wrist. "Don't be dramatic." I pulled away. As I left the bar, I heard her call after me. I ignored it and kept walking. Then my phone buzzed. Don't leave. Please. I don't want to be with him. Just needed to mess with him. I paused. Another message. He cheated on me. I wanted him to see me with someone better. I should have kept walking. But something in me softened. Maybe it was ego. Maybe I wanted to believe I was helping her hurt him back. I turned around. She was outside, arms folded, cigarette dangling from her lips. You're sweet, she said, taking a drag. Most guys would have left. I did leave. Yeah, but you came back. We sat in my car. She played music on her phone, some melancholic indie band I couldn't name. She rolled the window down and let the smoke curl out like ghosts. Then she started crying. Not delicate tears, full body sobs. I had no idea what to do. She kept saying, I'm so tired of being the crazy one. I told her she wasn't crazy. She laughed through the tears. You don't know me yet. She leaned over and kissed me, wet, messy, desperate. Her hands were in my hair, on my chest, grabbing, clinging. I kissed back at first, then pulled away. Maybe we should just talk. She froze. Her face crumpled. Don't pity me, she whispered. I'm not. She opened the door and stepped out into the street. Take me home. I hesitated. Where do you live? Just drive, she snapped. She got in the back seat. You're not an Uber, she muttered. I just don't want to sit next to you. I drove in silence. After 5 minutes, she asked, Do you think I'm beautiful? Yes. Do you think I'm too much? Silence. Then, you don't have to answer. I pulled up to her building. She didn't get out. Instead, she reached into her bag, pulled out a small bottle of pills, and stared at them. Don't, I said, my voice suddenly sharp. She smiled. I'm not suicidal. I just like the way they make me feel. Maybe tonight's not the night. She looked at me through the rearview mirror. You're probably right. She got out and walked up the steps without looking back. I sat in the car for a long time. The next morning, she messaged me. Thanks for not leaving me alone with him. I didn't reply. She messaged again. We should sing something together next time. I blocked her number without any hesitation. On to the next. Country music isn't really my thing. I mean, I don't hate it. I can appreciate a decent guitar riff or a sad song about rain and whiskey. But I don't own a pair of cowboy boots, and I definitely don't follow any artists closely. Except maybe Johnny Cash, but that feels like a personality trait more than a preference. She loved it though. Her name was Talia. We'd been talking for a couple months, nothing serious, mostly messages that escalated into voice notes and late-night phone calls where she'd hum along to her Spotify playlists and try to guess my sign based on my laugh. She was funny, dry, a little flirtatious in that way that made you wonder if she meant it or if it was just how she talked to everyone. She said she liked men who drove trucks and didn't flinch at emotional honesty. I drove a hatchback and flinched at group hugs, but I figured I'd give it a shot. When she asked me if I wanted to go to a Keith Urban concert with her, I hesitated. It's across the state, she said. But I've got the tickets. You just have to drive. I should have known then. But I said yes. The morning of, I picked her up at 10 a.m. sharp. She came out of her apartment in cut-off denim shorts, a wide-brimmed hat, and a Keith Urban Tour tank top that looked like it had been through a few summers already. You're early, she said, grinning as she climbed into the passenger seat. You said 10. Most guys show up after coffee, not before. We stopped for gas and snacks, a bag of trail mix for me, sour gummies and cold brew for her. She turned the stereo to her playlist without asking and immediately started singing along. I didn't mind. She had a decent voice. The drive was 3.5 hours of country twang, roadside arguments about whether horses count as pets, and her telling me about the time she broke up with someone in the middle of a Miranda Lambert song. By the time we got to the venue, I was exhausted but cautiously optimistic. Maybe this was something. Maybe I was just tired of being alone and projecting too much onto someone because she knew how to hold a conversation. We parked in a massive, sunburned lot and walked to the gates. She touched my arm when she laughed, looped her fingers through mine when we got too close to a crowd. Those small gestures that make you feel chosen, even if you know better. Our seats were surprisingly good, close enough to see the sweat on Keith Urban's brow, far enough not to get beer spilled on us. She danced. I swayed. She howled the lyrics. I grinned and pretended I knew them too. Then came the moment. It was during Without You, a slower song. She leaned into me, pressing her head against my shoulder. Her fingers brushed the side of my neck. I turned to her. She turned to me. And then she pulled back. I can't, she said quietly, barely audible over the music. I don't think I'm attracted to you. It hit like a slap. Not because it was cruel, it wasn't. It was soft, honest. But it cut with the precision of someone who'd rehearsed it. I didn't say anything. She looked away, back toward the stage. I nodded slowly and returned my gaze to the lights and the man singing his heart out to a crowd of strangers. We stayed for the entire show. Not because I wanted to, but because I had no idea what else to do. Afterward, we walked back to the car in silence. The energy between us had cooled like spilled coffee on a counter, still present, but bitter and drying. She didn't apologize. I didn't ask her to. The drive back was worse than I imagined. 3 hours in the dark, her humming occasionally, me gripping the wheel harder than necessary. We passed through towns with names I didn't recognize, under blinking streetlights, through toll booths and patches of fog. When we stopped for gas, she waited in the car. When we got back to her place, she opened the door and paused. "You're a good guy," she said. "Just not for me." Then she was gone. I sat in the driveway for a full minute before reversing. The next day, she posted a photo from the concert. Just the stage, no faces. Captioned, "Sometimes you go just to sing." I didn't like it. Didn't comment. Didn't reach out. She showed up in an evening gown. Not a cocktail dress. Not something stylish, but casual. No, an actual floor-length, dark satin evening gown with a slit up the side and a shawl draped over her shoulders like she was about to accept an award or crash a gala. I was wearing jeans and a button-up shirt. I felt like a waiter. Her name was Melinda. We'd met on Match.com, back before dating apps were slick and addictive. Back when they still tried to pretend online dating was for professionals looking for love. Her profile had a single photo, a blurry shot of her standing in front of a museum. Her hair was bright red, her smile wide, and her bio said she loved cats, classic literature, and a man who knows how to make a reservation. I figured dinner at P.F. Chang's was safe. Chain restaurant. Middle of the week. Public. She arrived 15 minutes late, sweeping into the restaurant like she'd just stepped out of a limo. I stood to greet her and immediately noticed 3 things. She was wearing heels that had no business being worn on cobblestones. She had a martini glass tattooed on her collarbone, and she carried a tiny velvet clutch in one hand and what looked like a hat pin in the other. "You look amazing," I said, because what else do you say? She smiled. "I like to dress for the evening. You never know who you'll meet." We were seated near the back, in a booth under a dragon mural. She slid in across from me, pulling the shawl tighter around her shoulders like she expected a draft. The waiter came over to take our drink orders. I asked for a beer. She ordered a Long Island iced tea. "Make it a double," she added, not breaking eye contact with me. The waiter blinked, nodded, and left. I asked her about her day. She said she'd spent the morning journaling and feeding the feral cats behind her apartment building. Then she asked, "What's your relationship like with your mother?" We hadn't even ordered yet. I gave a non-committal answer, polite but vague. She nodded slowly, like she was taking mental notes. The drinks arrived. She polished off half her cocktail in one sip. I watched her eyes flick across the restaurant like she was scanning for someone. When the waiter returned, she pointed at the menu. "I'll have the Mongolian beef, and the sesame chicken, and the egg rolls. Oh, and the lobster dumplings. For the table." I wasn't sure if the table meant me and her or just her. I ordered something small. She drank the rest of her Long Island before the appetizers arrived. That's when she started leaning. Not just leaning forward, but sideways, like gravity had started to tilt just for her. Her shawl slipped off one shoulder. She giggled. Then she reached across the table and touched my hand. "Do you believe in reincarnation?" she asked. "I haven't thought about it much. I think I was a courtesan in 18th century France," she said. "That's why I'm so comfortable in gowns, and why I have a complicated relationship with men." I laughed nervously. "That explains a lot." She narrowed her eyes. "Was that sarcasm?" No, I just..." She pulled back. "You don't respect women who know who they are." "I what?" "You wouldn't say that to a man in a suit." I didn't say anything. She waved me off and reached into her clutch. Pulled out the hat pin. It was long. Silver. Sharp. She twirled it between her fingers. "I use this when I feel threatened," she said. "Not that you're threatening. Yet." I stared at it. The waiter came with our food. She smiled at him, set the pin down, and clapped her hands. "Feed me," she said, loud enough for the nearby table to turn. He set the plates down quickly and left. She picked up her fork and started eating like she hadn't in days. The chicken disappeared in seconds. The beef vanished. She dipped the dumplings in soy sauce and made low sounds of pleasure as she chewed. Then she reached across the table with her fork and speared a piece of my dish. "Sharing is part of connection," she said. I nodded. "Sure." Her drink was gone again. She flagged down a server and demanded a third. "Make it strong," she said. "I want to forget everything but this night." The server hesitated. "We usually limit Long Islands to 2 per guest." She narrowed her eyes. "I am not a guest. I am the show." He walked away without answering. She stared at me. "Do you think I'm dramatic?" "I think you're passionate." She smiled. "Good answer." Then she picked up the hat pin again and stabbed me in the arm. Just a quick jab. Not deep, but sharp enough to break skin. I yelped. "What the hell?" She blinked like she hadn't expected it to work. Then she leaned back and laughed. "I was seeing if you'd react." Men never react anymore. They just shut down. I grabbed a napkin and pressed it to the spot. "You stabbed me." "Barely." I stood up. She grabbed my wrist. "You're going to leave now?" "Yes." "You haven't even tried the egg rolls." I pulled my arm away and walked out. The manager followed me into the parking lot. He'd seen the whole thing. "Do you want us to call someone?" he asked. "I just want to go home." He handed me a to-go box. "She made us pack it for you. Said you'd regret your cowardice on an empty stomach." I took it, drove home, threw it away. But that wasn't the end. An hour later, I got a call. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice slurred. I fell down the stairs. "I think I broke my ankle. But I told them it was your fault. You made me dizzy." I froze. Then another message. "You were supposed to be different." A third. "They're taking me to the hospital." I told them your name. I drove to the ER. Not for her. For me. To make sure my name wasn't being written in some report. When I arrived, she was on a stretcher in the hallway. Still in the gown. Still holding the hat pin. She winked when she saw me. And passed out. I told the nurse I didn't know her last name. That we weren't together. That I was just a guy who picked the wrong restaurant. The nurse nodded. "You're the third one this month." I haven't been to a P.F. Chang's since. Because I remember the hat pin. And the egg rolls. And the way she said, "I am the show." She wasn't wrong. It's strange how fast something can shift. 1 second, you're laughing in a movie theater with someone who smells like vanilla and new leather. And the next, you're sitting in silence, your elbow connecting with her face in a way that sounds like a gunshot in your head. That's how I lost Holly. We met through a mutual friend, my coworker Becca, who thought we'd vibe because we both liked old movies and had opinions about sandwiches that bordered on the obsessive. Holly was a graphic designer, a little shy, with this gorgeous, messy auburn hair that she tucked behind her ears when she spoke. Her voice was soft, but her laugh was loud, and I liked the contrast of it. We texted for a week before she suggested grabbing coffee. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into a walk around the lake. That turned into a second date. Then a third. By date 4, I started to think this might actually go somewhere. When I asked her if she wanted to see a movie, she said yes without hesitation. But not anything dumb, she said. No CGI orgies. Something with substance. We settled on a new spy thriller, kind of a gritty throwback vibe, British accents, trench coats, tension you could chew through. The reviews said it had unexpected jump scares and one particularly brutal twist in the third act. We were both curious. I picked her up at 6:45 on a Friday. She wore jeans, a dark green sweater, and a leather jacket. She looked like she belonged in the movie more than I did. When I told her that, she laughed and said, "I do have a face for espionage." We got popcorn and sodas. Found our seats in the middle row. She sat close to me. Our thighs touched at the edges, and I could feel the static when she shifted slightly in her seat. The movie started off slow. Moody lighting. Cigarette smoke. A man in a hotel room staring out a window for what felt like 20 minutes. Holly leaned in once and whispered, "This is either going to be brilliant or unbearable." I smiled and nodded. We shared the popcorn. Our fingers brushed a few times. I could feel the warmth of her next to me, and I started thinking about whether it'd be too soon to kiss her goodnight later. Whether she'd lean in or pull away. Then the scene happened. It was about halfway through. The protagonist, a shadowy double agent whose name I still can't remember, was following a lead through a dark underground tunnel. The music was gone. Just footsteps, breath, the occasional drip of water. I was leaning forward slightly, totally locked in. Then the jump scare. Loud. Sudden. A flash of movement across the screen, something lunging. I flinched. Hard. And my elbow flew sideways. Straight into Holly's face. It wasn't a gentle bump. It was a full contact, bone-to-cheekbone collision. A wet crack echoed in my ears. She gasped, pulled back, and grabbed her nose. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Are you okay?" She didn't respond. The screen lit up again, casting her in flickering light. Her hand was over her nose, her eyes wide, and I saw a trickle of red between her fingers. "I'm so sorry," I said. "Jesus, I didn't mean to. Are you bleeding?" She stood up without a word and walked past me, out of the row. I hesitated, then followed her. In the bathroom hallway, she was bent over a sink, dabbing her nose with a wad of toilet paper. A staff member stood nearby, awkward and unhelpful. I approached slowly. "Holly." She turned. Her nose was red and slightly swollen, and her eyes were glassy, not from crying, I think, but from the shock. "I'm so sorry," I said again. "I didn't see. I didn't mean to. I just reacted." She didn't speak for a long moment. Then quietly, "I know. I feel like an idiot." "You should." That stung. But I deserved it. "I can take you home," I offered. "Or to urgent care. Or wherever you want to go." She shook her head. "I'll call a ride." "I can." "No." The staff member handed her a bag of ice. She pressed it gently to her face. "I think it's just bruised," she said. "Not broken." I nodded. "Still, I'll pay for whatever you need." "I mean it." She looked at me, expression unreadable. Then she said, "Why'd you flinch that hard?" "What?" "That scene. It wasn't even that scary. You flinched like someone fired a gun next to your ear." I didn't know how to answer that. She sniffled, winced. "I'm not mad," she said. "I just don't think this is going to work." The words landed like concrete. "What?" "Wait, because of this." "It's not just this," she said. "It's everything. The way you talk. The way you hesitate before saying anything serious. The way you're always halfway in the room." "I didn't know you felt that way." She shrugged. "It's fine. You're not a bad guy. You're just not my guy." The rideshare pulled up outside. She gave me one last look, then walked out. I stood in the hallway for a while. The movie was still playing. Somewhere in that dark room, the protagonist was probably uncovering betrayal or surviving a car crash. But I couldn't go back in. I drove home in silence. 3 days later, I texted her. "Just wanted to make sure your nose is okay." No response. After a week, I unfollowed her on everything. Not out of anger. Just to stop myself from checking. It started with the voices. Soft at first. Just murmurs. I thought it was the pipes. My apartment was old. One of those 1960s buildings with paper-thin walls and floors that creaked like they were whispering secrets. So I assumed it was a neighbor. Someone watching TV too loud. Talking on the phone late at night. But then I started hearing my name. Not shouted. Not even clearly spoken. Just little fragments that sounded like Jules or Julian. And always, always from the laundry room. I live on the 3rd floor of a walk-up. The laundry room is in the basement, dimly lit with one flickering fluorescent bulb overhead and 2 dusty dryers that smell faintly of mold and scorched fabric softener. I never liked going down there, but I did my laundry late, usually around midnight, when no one else was around. That's where I met her. Kaya. She lived on the floor above me. We started talking over laundry baskets. She was funny, sharp, had a laugh that made you forget what time it was. She'd just moved in after a breakup, and I had just gotten out of something messy myself. We started texting, then hanging out. Then, well, it wasn't serious. Or at least, I didn't think it was. She stayed over maybe once or twice a week. Left a toothbrush in my bathroom. Brought her own pillow once. But I kept it casual. I was honest. I told her I wasn't ready for anything heavy. She nodded. Said she understood. But then she started showing up unannounced. First it was with coffee. Then dinner. Then just to talk. And when I didn't answer the door right away, she'd text. "Why are you being weird? You said you'd be around. Are you with someone else?" I started pulling back. Fewer texts. No more sleepovers. I didn't ghost her, but I made it clear we were slowing down. She didn't take it well. The last time we spoke, I told her I needed space. She nodded, smiled, and said, "Okay, I get it." But she didn't. That was 2 months ago, and now I was hearing voices in the laundry room. I told myself it was the building. Old pipes. Echoes. A neighbor watching something with the volume up too high. Until I found the sunglasses. They were sitting on top of my dryer. Big, round lenses with gold trim. Definitely not mine. And familiar. Kaya had a pair just like that. Wore them constantly, even indoors sometimes. Said they made her feel less visible. I picked them up. Looked around. No one. I left them there. Later that night, I went to bed early. Around 10 p.m. I was tired. I left a load of laundry drying downstairs, figuring I'd grab it in the morning. But something woke me around 3 a.m. A sound. A low metallic creak, like a heavy door opening. Then a thud. I sat up in bed, heart racing. I live alone. No pets. No roommates. I got up, grabbed the baseball bat I kept by my closet, a gift from my paranoid older brother, and crept to the hallway. Nothing. Then I noticed, the laundry room light was on. I could see the glow under the basement door at the end of the hallway. I should have called the super. Or the police. But I didn't. I was too tired. Too curious. Too stupid. I crept down the stairs. The door to the laundry room was slightly ajar. I pushed it open with the end of the bat. It was silent. The dryers were still. But something was off. The far dryer, the old one with the dented door, was closed. But the handle was wet, like someone had just touched it with damp hands. And then I saw it, written on the inside of the fog glass door. Hi, smiley face. Drawn with a fingertip. I backed out of the room slowly. Locked the door. Went back upstairs and didn't sleep. The next morning, the message was gone. I told myself I imagined it. That it was condensation. That someone else had drawn it earlier. That it wasn't meant for me. But then I got the photo. It arrived via text. No number. Just unknown. It was a picture of me. Asleep. In my bed. Taken from the foot of the mattress. My heart stopped. I stared at it for 5 full minutes before I could even blink. Then I checked my bedroom. The windows were locked. The door was bolted. No sign of a break-in. Nothing out of place. Except the air felt wrong. Like someone had exhaled and hadn't left yet. I called the police. They took a report. Looked around. Told me there were no signs of forced entry. Suggested it might be a prank. Change your locks, one of them said. Maybe install a camera. I did both. 2 days passed. No texts. No photos. I started to relax. Then I overheard the neighbor talking in the hallway. Did you hear about the girl upstairs? The redhead? Kaya? What about her? She moved out. Left all her stuff. Just vanished. I froze. Later that night, I saw the super in the stairwell. Did Kaya leave? He nodded. Yeah, a couple weeks ago. Said she had a family emergency. Never came back. Did she return her keys? He shrugged. I don't think so. Why? No reason. But I knew. I knew because the next night, I heard the dryer door slam again. And this time, I went down with my phone flashlight and a knife from my kitchen drawer. When I opened the laundry room door, it was empty. Except for the dryer. The dented one. The one with the fogged up glass. Something was inside it. I stepped closer. Squinted. And then I saw her. Curled up. Naked. Wearing those gold-rimmed sunglasses. She was crammed inside the dryer like a contortionist. Her knees bent up to her chest. Her spine twisted. Her fingers tapped slowly on the glass. Tap. 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 I screamed. She didn't. She smiled. I ran. Up the stairs. Out the front door. I didn't stop until I was 5 blocks away. I called the police again. Told them everything. They came back. Searched the building. The dryer was empty. No fingerprints. No sign of forced entry. No Kaya. But the sunglasses were on my doorstep the next morning. Folded. Neat. Waiting. I moved out the next day. Threw out my clothes. Got a new phone. New address. I even started going by my middle name. I haven't heard from her since. It started with the tapping. Late at night, after midnight. Always soft. Always spaced out, like a slow heartbeat against the glass. Tap. Tap. Pause. Tap tap. The first time it happened, I froze in bed, clutching my phone like a lifeline. I lived alone in a garden-level apartment, half submerged, with the tops of my windows just above sidewalk height. It was cozy if a little dark, and cheap, which meant no doorman, no buzzer system, and a front door that didn't quite seal in the winter. That night, I waited for the sound again. But it didn't come. I told myself it had been a tree branch, or a raccoon, or the building settling. Then I went to sleep. JJ was my boyfriend at the time. We'd been dating for about 5 months. He was warm, affectionate, a little clingy, but in a way I found endearing. He always texted good morning and good night. He brought me soup when I was sick. He kissed my forehead more than my mouth. He had a soft face, a roundness to him. The kind of guy you'd trust to watch your dog or pick up your grandma from the airport. But he had a temper. Not loud, not violent, just simmering. He'd shut down, go quiet for hours if something didn't go his way. If I didn't text back fast enough, or if I changed plans last minute, he'd say things like, "I guess I just care more than you do." I didn't think much of it at first. I'd dated worse. The second time I heard the tapping, it was raining. I'd just finished brushing my teeth. I was in bed, scrolling on my phone, half listening to a true crime podcast. Then tap. Tap. A pause. Then tap, tap, tap. My entire body went cold. I turned off the podcast, held my breath, waited. It came again. 3 taps. Carefully spaced. I crept to the window. The blinds were closed, but the sound was unmistakable. It was coming from the left window, the one facing the alley behind the building. I grabbed the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, a mug, and yanked the blinds up. Nothing. Just darkness. Rain pooling in the alley. A single dumpster. No movement. I stood there for a full minute, convinced I'd see someone step forward. But no one did. I called JJ. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, what's wrong? I think someone's outside my window." He was silent for half a beat. "What?" I heard knocking. Tapping. It wasn't the rain. It was deliberate. "Do you want me to come over?" I hesitated. "It's late. I'm already dressed," he said. "I'll be there in 10. He showed up, damp from the rain but smiling. He kissed my cheek, checked the alley, walked around the building twice. Nothing. No footprints. No signs of anyone. "You probably just spooked yourself," he said gently. "That podcast was about home invasions, wasn't it?" I nodded. He stayed the night. I slept better with him there. But the tapping didn't stop. It came every few nights. Always after midnight. Always just a few knocks. Never loud enough to draw attention. Never frequent enough to be predictable. I started recording it with my phone. Sometimes I caught it. Sometimes I didn't. I showed the recordings to JJ. He frowned, listened carefully. "I believe you," he said. "But maybe it's a bird? Or a pipe knocking? It sounds like fingers." He didn't argue. But he started staying over more often. Unprompted. Sometimes he'd be at my place when I got home, claiming he was just in the area, or thought he'd surprise me. He'd do my dishes, fold my laundry, rearrange my fridge. I appreciated it, at first. But something about it started to feel off. Like my home wasn't mine anymore. Then came the photo. It arrived one morning via text. No message. No context. Just a single image. Me. Asleep. Taken from low angle, near my bed. I stared at it for a full minute before my stomach dropped. The blankets were the same. The pajama shirt. The shape of my hand curled by my face. It was real. I'd been photographed while sleeping. I called JJ in tears. He answered immediately. "What's wrong?" I told him. His voice went hard. "I'm coming over now." He showed up 20 minutes later, already in a jacket. He hugged me, kissed my forehead, made tea. Then he said something that made my blood chill. "I think I saw someone outside last night." "What?" He nodded. "I was driving by around 1:30, couldn't sleep. I saw someone near your window. I parked, got out, but they ran when I got close. I didn't want to scare you. Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want you to panic." I stared at him. He stared back. "I think they took that photo," he said. "I think they've been watching you." He helped me file a police report. He insisted on installing a camera by the window. He even offered to loan me a little motion sensor he said he used for hiking trips. After he left that night, I couldn't sleep. Something didn't feel right. I checked the camera footage the next morning. It was gone. Every file from the last 24 hours had been deleted. I asked JJ if he'd messed with it. He said no. Looked hurt that I'd even ask. But the seed had been planted. I started watching him more closely. The way he always knew when I was home, even without texting. The way he showed up with groceries I hadn't told him I needed. The way he'd mention things I'd only posted on my private Instagram story. Then I found the backup files. The camera app had a cloud feature. JJ didn't know that. I logged in from my laptop. There it was. Footage from the previous night. 1:38 a.m. A figure outside my window. Male. Hooded. Standing just out of the light. Then he stepped closer, and I saw his face. JJ. Clear as day. Staring through the glass. Not knocking. Not tapping. Just watching. I couldn't breathe. I felt my body go ice cold, fingers trembling over the keyboard. He'd been lying. He was the one outside. He was the one taking the photos. He was the one who chased someone off. I saved the footage. Emailed it to myself. To my sister. To a friend in law school. Then I waited. He texted later that day. Thinking of you. Let me know if you need anything. I didn't reply. That night, he showed up at my door. I didn't answer. He knocked. Once. Twice. Then he texted again. I know you're in there. I called the police. They came. Took the footage. Took my statement. Told me to file a restraining order. He was gone by the time they arrived. They found him 2 days later, sitting in his car across the street from my building. He had a camera. A pair of binoculars. A notebook filled with times I came and went. What I wore. Who I was with. He was arrested for stalking and harassment. He pled guilty to a lesser charge. Got probation and mandatory therapy. I haven't seen him since. But I moved. Got a new phone. A new apartment with no street-level windows. I don't remember meeting Henry for the first time. He was just always around. He was the son of my dad's oldest friend, the kind of kid who tagged along at cookouts and birthday parties, always one step behind, always looking at me with this quiet, heavy stare. Henry was 2 years older, but awkward enough that he never quite blended in with his own age group. He hovered. I didn't think much of it growing up. Small towns breed familiarity. You get used to the same faces, the same names. You assume time will scatter everyone eventually like seeds on wind. But Henry stuck. He was quiet in high school, almost invisible. He didn't play sports, didn't go to parties, didn't date. He was the guy in the corner of the library, sketching things in a notebook. I once caught him doodling a portrait of me, my face in profile, my hair tied back, wearing the hoodie I wore every other day. It was detailed. Too detailed. I laughed it off. Told myself he was just socially awkward. That it was flattering, in a weird way. He didn't speak to me until senior year. It was after gym class. I was walking to my locker, hair still damp from the showers, earbuds in. He stopped me in the hallway. Just stepped in front of me like a shadow falling across the floor. I like your laugh, he said. I pulled out one earbud. What? Your laugh. It's nice. Real. Thanks. He stared for a second too long. Then walked away. That was the beginning. After that, he started appearing more often. At the gas station. At the library. Outside my part-time job at the flower shop. Always alone. Always watching. He never said anything again. Not until after graduation. It was at a 4th of July barbecue at my parents' house. Henry was there with his dad, sitting off to the side by the fence. I was wearing a red sundress, trying to look older than I felt, sipping sweet tea and pretending to tolerate the heat. He found me in the kitchen. I think you're the kind of person who needs protecting, he said. I blinked. Excuse me? He smiled. Guys only want you for your body. I see what they don't. I set my glass down. I think you should leave me alone now. He didn't move. So I left the kitchen instead. 2 weeks later, I moved to college, 3 hours away. I figured that was the end of it. Just another weird kid with too much imagination and not enough boundaries. I was wrong. He started messaging me sophomore year. Long, rambling Facebook messages. Paragraphs about how he missed the purity of my presence. How he'd felt a spiritual connection since we were children. How other men would ruin me, but he would wait. I blocked him. He made a new account. I blocked that too. Then the letters started. Handwritten. No return address. Folded into neat thirds. Always the same stationery. A pale blue paper with little silver stars printed in the corners. They came about once a month. Always the same themes. You were made for me. I feel you in my chest when I sleep. One day you'll understand what we are. I didn't tell anyone. I don't know why. Maybe part of me didn't think it was serious. Maybe I didn't want to be dramatic. Maybe I'd internalized the idea that being watched was just part of being female. Then I came home for spring break junior year. My parents were out of town, so I stayed in the house alone. The third night, I was brushing my teeth around 11 p.m. when I noticed something outside the bathroom window. A smudge. I leaned closer. It was a handprint. Pressed into the glass. Fingers angled inward. Slightly smeared. Fresh. I froze. The bathroom faced the side of the house, overlooking a narrow strip of gravel and bushes. No reason anyone should be back there. No reason anyone should be that close. I turned off the light, moved to the hallway, peered out through the curtains, and there he was, Henry, sitting in the cab of his truck, parked across the street. Engine off, lights off, just watching. I didn't sleep that night. The next day I told my dad. He made a few calls, spoke with Henry's father. There was an apology, a vague promise that it wouldn't happen again. My dad said, "He's just lonely." I said, "He's dangerous." But no one listened. Back at school, I started carrying pepper spray. Then one night, I got a text. An unknown number. "I like the way your mouth moves when you read." I nearly dropped my phone. I blocked the number. Filed a report with campus security. They said there wasn't much they could do without proof. That weekend, my roommate found a Polaroid slipped under our dorm door. It was me, in the library, reading. Not posed, not smiling, just observed. I started to unravel. I stopped going out alone. Started sleeping with the lights on. Then came the night I woke up to tapping. Rhythmic, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. At the window. Second story. I didn't look. I didn't move. I just called the police. They came. Searched. Found nothing. But the next morning, there was a note on my windshield. "You're safer when I'm close." That was the last straw. I went home. Told my parents everything. This time they believed me. We filed a restraining order. Got a lawyer involved. Contacted every number listed under Henry's name. A week later, he was arrested trying to break into a garage, 2 blocks from my apartment. He was carrying a flashlight, gloves, and a printed photo of me. The charges didn't stick. First offense, no physical harm, mental health history. They let him go with mandatory counseling. He's not allowed to contact me. But I still see his truck sometimes about. Or maybe I just think I do. Every now and then, I find handprints on the glass. Smudged. Fresh. No one believes me anymore. But I know. Henry's still watching. It started with the missing cash. Not a huge sum. Just enough for me to notice. 100 here. 50 there. At first, I thought I was just miscounting. Maybe I'd taken out more cash than I remembered. Maybe I'd spent it and forgotten. But then I found my emergency envelope had been opened. The one I kept hidden behind the stack of cookbooks in the cabinet above the fridge. Only one person knew about that envelope. My ex, Dylan. We'd broken up 2 months earlier, after a long, drawn-out collapse that felt more like a custody battle than a breakup. We didn't share kids, but we did share a lease, a cat, and a bank account that I'd stupidly left his name on way too long. I'd finally gotten him out of the apartment, changed the locks, and started trying to rebuild my life. But Dylan didn't go quietly. The first few weeks, he bombarded me with texts. "Miss you. Can we talk? I still have stuff at your place. I don't want to end things like this." I ignored them. Then came the guilt messages. "You're cold. I gave you everything. You used me." I stopped reading them. Eventually, he went quiet. I thought maybe he'd moved on. I let my guard down. And that's when things started disappearing. My grandmother's necklace was the second thing to go. I noticed it missing one morning when I was getting ready for work. I tore the bathroom apart, thinking maybe I'd put it in the wrong drawer. Then I checked the dresser, the hallway closet, the kitchen counter. It was just gone. I didn't want to believe Dylan had come back. But the thought wouldn't leave me. I texted him. "Did you take anything from the apartment?" No response. I checked the back door, the window, the fire escape. Nothing looked tampered with. But when I checked the footage from the small security cam I had pointed at my front door, I saw something that made my skin crawl. The footage had been wiped. The camera was still there, still blinking, but every file from the last 72 hours had been deleted or corrupted. I hadn't done that. No one else had access to the app. Unless someone had been inside. Again, I called the police. Filed a report. They asked if I had proof he'd stolen anything. I didn't. Just absence. Just gut instinct. They couldn't do much with that. So I did something Dylan never expected from me. I installed more cameras. Tiny ones. Hidden. One in the hallway. One in the kitchen. One facing the bedroom door. Then I waited. 3 nights later, I caught him. It was 2:38 a.m. I was at my friend Jess's place, staying over after wine and horror movies. I got a motion alert on my phone. Opened the app. There he was. Dylan, In my kitchen. Wearing gloves. Quiet. Calm. Like he belonged there. He opened drawers. Took a few things, my headphones, a silver ring my sister gave me, a small wad of cash from a mug I kept above the fridge. Then he walked out. I couldn't breathe. I called the police again. This time I had video. They took it seriously. But Dylan was slippery. By the time they went to find him, he'd vanished. A week passed. Then I got a call from a pawn shop across town. A man had come in trying to sell a necklace. Engraved. Gold. The kind of thing you don't forget. The shop owner recognized it from a local theft alert. Called the police. They arrested Dylan on site. He had my headphones in his backpack, my ring in his pocket, a camera SD card that hadn't been wiped yet. When questioned, he said he was retrieving things that belonged to him. They charged him with burglary, theft, and violation of a restraining order I'd filed 2 days before the pawn shop called. He pled not guilty, said he hadn't broken in, that I'd invited him in spiritually. His lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity, claimed Dylan was grieving the relationship, not thinking clearly. But the footage didn't lie. He's serving time now. Short sentence. Not enough, if you ask me. But I sleep better. I replaced the locks again. Got a new security system. Moved the emergency cash to a deposit box. Started therapy. And every time I pass a pawn shop window and see a display of glittering things, I remember how fast a person can shift. From someone you love to someone who watches you sleep and steals from the shadows. Sometimes I still check the cameras at 2:38 a.m., just to be sure. So far, they're empty. But I'm not naive enough to think that means I'm safe. I'm just harder to find now. She was beautiful in an effortless, untrained way, like she'd never had to try. Pale skin, dark curls, this slow, deliberate way of speaking that made you lean in. We met at an open mic in a bookstore. I was reading a short story. She was there for a friend, she said, but afterward, she came up to me and said, "You write like you're trying to confess something." I didn't know what to say. She smiled. "That's a compliment." We started seeing each other that week. It was fast. Not messy, not chaotic, just fast. She texted me constantly. Sent voice memos. Photos of her cat. Screenshots of songs she thought I'd like. She was intense but warm, and I liked how she made me feel like I was the only person on the planet worth listening to. She shared everything. Her childhood, her trauma, the ex who broke her open, the therapist who told her she had a high emotional frequency. She said she felt safe around me. Said I was grounded, stable. Said she hadn't felt that in years. I liked hearing that. Who wouldn't? But then she started talking about him. The stalker. At first, she mentioned him casually. Had to change my route home again. He was waiting outside the coffee shop again. I blinked. Wait, who was? She looked away. Just someone I used to date. It's fine. She didn't give much detail. Said she'd filed a report. Said the police weren't helpful. They never are with women like me. They think we're being dramatic. I didn't push. But gradually, the stories became more vivid. He called my mom at work. He left a dead bird on my doorstep. I think he's been in my apartment. I asked if she had evidence. Cameras. Messages. Anything. She just shook her head. He's smart. He doesn't leave a trail. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. But something about it started to feel off. One night, I woke up to a pounding on my door. 2:17 a.m. It was Isabel. She was crying, shaking, barefoot. He followed me, she said. He was outside my window. I let her in. She curled up on my couch under a blanket and stared at the wall for hours. She didn't sleep. The next morning, I offered to help her move. Move where? She asked. Somewhere safer. Away from him. She smiled. You're already safer. That night she stayed over. I woke up around 3 a.m. to find her standing in the doorway, staring at me. Are you okay? I whispered. She nodded. I just like watching you breathe. I didn't sleep after that. She started leaving things at my place. A toothbrush. Clothes. Her cat. She said she felt safer there. That I didn't have to say yes, she just needed the option. I said yes. Then the phone call started. Blocked numbers. No one on the other end. Sometimes I heard breathing. Sometimes silence. I asked Isabel if it was him. She nodded. He's escalating. I offered to call the police again. She said no. Said she didn't trust them. Then she started accusing me. You left the window open. You told someone where we were. You let him in. I didn't know what to say. I started to wonder if she was right. If maybe I had said something without realizing it. If maybe he really was everywhere. Then I found the photo, tucked into one of my books, one she had borrowed and returned. It was a Polaroid of me, sleeping, taken from inside my bedroom. My skin went cold. I showed it to her. She didn't blink. "He's close," she said, "but he won't get me while you're here." I checked all the locks, installed a camera, started sleeping with a knife under my pillow. But the photos kept coming, under the door, in the mailbox, slipped between the pages of my notebooks, always of me, always taken while I was asleep. I began to unravel. I stopped going out, stopped writing, stopped answering calls from friends. Isabel told me they didn't understand, that they were jealous, that they didn't know how to protect me the way she could. I believed her, for a while, until I found the journal. It was hers, hidden in my closet, behind a stack of towels, pages and pages, notes, observations, sketches of me, not just me sleeping, me eating, me brushing my teeth, me reading, me crying. Next to each entry, she'd written timestamps, and words like, beautiful, mine, still doesn't know, need to keep him afraid, that's when he loves me most. I sat on the floor for an hour staring at those pages. The next morning, I told her I needed to go to work early. I didn't go to work. I went to the police. They listened this time. I showed them the photos, the journal. I told them everything. They took it seriously. When they came to the apartment, Isabel was calm. She didn't resist. She didn't cry. She just looked at me as they cuffed her and whispered, "You were supposed to protect me." They found more photos in her bag, more journals, a burner phone with dozens of voicemails, her voice distorted, whispering threats. She'd been the stalker the whole time. Not of someone else. Of me. She's in a facility now. They say she's stable. That she's getting better. Sometimes I get letters. I don't open them, but I recognize the handwriting. He knew where I lived. That was the first thing I realized when I saw the envelope. No return address. No name. Just my first name written in small, printed letters. Inside, a single photo of me, taken from a distance through the glass of my kitchen window. I was in my robe, holding a cup of coffee, looking half awake. The implication struck harder than the image. He had been that close. I'd moved to London to disappear. A new job, a new flat, 2 time zones away from the man I thought I had finally escaped. But the past has a long reach, and Simon had fingers like needles. We met in college. He was charming, brilliant in that obsessive, magnetic way. He always had a plan, always knew what to say. I thought he was intense, sure, but I liked intense. I liked feeling wanted. The first time he said he loved me, we'd only been sleeping together for 2 weeks. I didn't say it back, but I didn't pull away either. I should have. The sex was addictive, edge of the bed, breathless, painful in a way that felt like penance. He knew exactly what buttons to push, and he pushed them hard. But then came the rules. Who I could talk to, what I could wear, when I had to text him, what time I had to be home. He never laid a hand on me in anger, but his words were weapons. When I tried to break up with him, he told me he'd kill himself. Then he told me he'd kill me. Then he said, "I don't think you understand what I am." That was when I left. I changed my number, blocked him on everything, got a new job, new apartment, told my friends not to tell him anything. I moved to London 6 months later and thought maybe, just maybe, I was free. Until the photo came. I didn't go to the police. I knew how that would go. He hasn't done anything illegal. He's just watching. There's no threat yet. I didn't sleep that night. I kept all the lights on. I checked the locks 3 times. I pushed a chair under the doorknob like I was in a movie. The next day, another envelope. This one had a note. "I miss the way you taste." Just that. Typed. Plain font. No signature. I threw up in the sink. I started staying late at work, sleeping at a coworker's place. I told myself he couldn't find me again, that maybe someone else had sent the photo, that I was being paranoid. Then I saw him. Not close. Across the street. Standing under a lamppost, half in shadow. He didn't wave. Just watched me. I ran upstairs. Called the police. They sent someone. Took a statement. Asked if I had proof he was threatening me. I showed them the photo. The note. They said they'd keep an eye out. That night, I found a single black underwear, my own, folded neatly on my pillow. I hadn't worn that pair in months. I started sleeping with a knife under my bed. He stopped sending photos. Started texting instead. Blocked numbers. always different. The messages were short. I still have your necklace. You used to beg for me. You're sweating. That's how I know you're reading these. I stopped responding, stopped reading, but he kept sending them. Then one night, I came home and found the door to my flat unlocked. I paused in the doorway. Silence. I stepped inside. Nothing looked disturbed. No drawers open. No furniture moved. Then I saw it. My bed. The sheets had been pulled back. Just a little. And in the center of the mattress, coiled like a snake, was my belt. The one he used to use on me. Not for violence. For sex. He liked to bind my wrists. My ankles. Pull it tight until I whimpered. It had been in a box. In the back of my closet. He'd gone through everything. I called the police again. They searched. Found no fingerprints. No sign of forced entry. No cameras in the hallway. I slept at a hotel that night. Then another. Then another. I was unraveling. Couldn't think. Couldn't eat. Then, after 5 days of silence, he sent one final message. You can't hide. You were made for me. I have a place. Come see it. I didn't plan to go. I really didn't. But curiosity is a sickness. And fear has a way of curving into obsession. He sent coordinates. Outside the city. Near a train station I'd never used. I went. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it. Maybe I wanted to end it on my terms. The address led to a row of old storage units, hidden behind a rusted gate. I walked through the overgrown lot, heart pounding, knife in my jacket pocket. Unit 47. The door wasn't locked. Inside, a mattress on the floor. A blanket. A pair of my old shoes. A single photo of me taped to the wall. And a shovel. I turned to run. He was already behind me. He didn't speak. Just stood there, watching me take it all in. I reached for the knife. He grabbed my wrist. Twisted. Hard. I fell. He knelt beside me. I wanted to show you, he whispered. I wanted you to see what comes next. He stroked my face. His fingers were cold. You were always going to come back. I didn't scream. I bit his hand. Hard enough that I tasted blood. He yelped. Let go. I scrambled. Kicked him in the knee. Ran. Didn't look back. The police caught him 2 hours later, wandering near the train station. He had a knife. Zip ties. My old toothbrush in his coat pocket. They took him in. Charged him. But he pled out. Psych evaluation. Some kind of deal. He's in a facility now. Monitored. I should have stayed home. That thought circled my brain like a prayer, even before I unlocked the door. The wedding was in upstate New York, a friend from college I hadn't seen in years. I almost didn't go. I wasn't part of the wedding party. I wasn't especially close to the bride anymore. But I had the invitation, the time off work, and a dress I hadn't worn since grad school. So I went. I left Friday morning. Packed a weekend bag. Told my boyfriend, Caleb, that I'd be back Sunday evening, and that he could stay at my place if he wanted. We'd been together for about 9 months. Still in that fuzzy phase where you pretend each other's flaws are just quirks. We hadn't moved in together yet, but we were close. He had a drawer in my bathroom. I'd met his mom once. We'd talked about adopting a dog. He smiled when I kissed him goodbye. Have fun, he said. Don't get drunk and fall in a fountain. I laughed. I make no promises. I didn't hear from him much that weekend. A few texts here and there. Mostly short replies. How's the wedding? Send pics. Miss you. I didn't think anything of it. The wedding was beautiful. Rustic barn, string lights, a live band playing acoustic covers of 2000s hits. I danced with old friends, drank too much champagne, and stayed up late in a rented farmhouse talking about how none of us had our lives together. Sunday afternoon, I drove home with a slight headache and a warm feeling in my chest. That feeling didn't last. When I pulled into my driveway, something felt off. No reason. Just a shiver beneath the skin. A subtle wrongness. Then I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Not foul exactly, but cloying. Damp. Like mildew and something chemical underneath. I stepped inside. My boots stuck slightly to the floor. What the? The living room was trashed. Not messy, destroyed. Couch cushions slashed open. Books ripped from shelves and shredded. My coffee table overturned, one leg cracked in half. The floor was littered with broken glass from a picture frame, the one that held the photo of Caleb and me from our trip to Maine. The photo was still there, but someone had drawn over it in what looked like Sharpie. 2XS over his eyes. A crown on my head. I dropped my bag. My hands started to shake. Caleb? No answer. I moved to the kitchen. Every cabinet was open. My plates were smashed on the floor. The fridge door hung ajar, and inside, every bottle and container had been emptied, some into the sink, others apparently onto the floor. A carton of milk had spilled and dried into a sticky, sour film on the tiles. I backed away slowly. Then I heard it. Water running. From the bathroom. I crept down the hallway. The light was on. The door half open. I pushed it with one finger. The tub was full. Overflowing, actually. Water sloshing onto the floor, soaking the bath mat, seeping into the hallway carpet. And there, curled up inside the tub, fully clothed, was Caleb. Eyes open. Unblinking. Soaking wet. Caleb? My voice cracked. He turned his head slowly. Smiled. Hey baby. What the hell happened? He blinked. I missed you. You, what is this? I made some changes. His voice was slurred. Not drunk. Slower than that. Foggier. I looked around. On the sink, a half-empty bottle of Valium. Not mine. Where did you get those? He shrugged. Friend. Doesn't matter. You need to get out of the tub. I'm comfortable. You're soaking in your clothes. I know. I reached for the faucet and turned off the water. He let out a soft laugh. You always take care of things. Caleb, what happened here? I cleaned up. I stared at him. You destroyed my apartment. He looked offended. I fixed it. It was cluttered. Too full of old energy. I backed out of the bathroom. Grabbed my phone. He called out from the tub. Don't do that. I ignored him. Called his sister. I'd only met her once, but she seemed level-headed. She answered on the third ring. Hi, it's Maya, I stammered. I think something's wrong with Caleb. She didn't sound surprised. She just said, where is he? In my apartment. In my bathtub. Is he on something? I think so. There's Valium. He's not making sense. I'll be right there. She arrived 20 minutes later. When she saw the living room, she winced. Then she found Caleb still in the tub. She crouched beside him, spoke softly. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught bits. You scared her. You promised. Not again. Eventually, he let her help him out of the tub. He didn't look at me as he passed. She wrapped him in a blanket and helped him into her car. Before they left, she turned to me. I'm sorry, she said. He does this when he spirals. He's not well. I nodded. She handed me a small card. A therapist's number. He won't go, she said. But maybe you should talk to someone. Just to unpack it. I stood in my wrecked doorway long after they left. The house was silent again. But it didn't feel like mine anymore. I spent the next 6 hours cleaning. Throwing things out. Scrubbing. Trying to erase the smell. The feeling. I found things hidden in strange places. A pair of my underwear stuffed inside a cereal box. My toothbrush snapped in half and placed neatly under my pillow. A photo of me as a child, one I didn't remember showing him, taped to the underside of the kitchen table. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for several nights. I changed the locks, installed cameras, filed a police report, not to press charges but to have something on record. I didn't hear from him again. He disappeared from socials. His sister sent one message a month later. He's in a facility. He's safe. I didn't reply.